elected and then indicted on 23 federal charges of fraud, theft, and lying to federal election officials. But the vote is controversial. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson expressing concern about removing Santos from office without him being convicted of anything.
I personally have real reservations about doing this.
Derek Dennis, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, 80 points right now. The NASDAQ up just a bit, only 6 points. And our KSL weather, the inversion is going to linger for at least another couple of days. That's next. KSL News Time 102.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
In order for small businesses to thrive, they need to be smart, efficient, savvy, staying ahead of the market at every turn, finding ways to do more with less, and taking advantage of every opportunity that comes their way. That's why Comcast Business is introducing the Small Business Bonus. For a limited time, you can get up to a $1,000 prepaid card when you switch to Comcast Business, the company with the largest, fastest, reliable network. Yep, you heard that right. 1,000 back. Something extra for your company. From the company that powers more businesses than anyone else. So if you're a small business owner, don't wait. Call or go online to learn about the $1,000 bonus today. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 12/5/2023. New customers with 750 megabits per second or above and 2-year agreement must keep required new services for 30 days to receive prepaid card. Other restrictions apply.
So with all the Black Friday stuff that's been going on, we're excited to tell you about the best deal we've seen so far, and that's Fed Up Kitchen's Black Friday sale.
That's right. It's the BOGO sale, and it's back. Buy one 4-week meal program, get another 4 weeks half off. It's so easy.
Yeah, that's 2 weeks of free healthy meals. You can order online at fedupkitchen.com.
Fed Up Kitchen is a healthy meal prep service. Healthy, delicious, ready-to-eat meals that will keep you full and satisfied.
And it's so easy to use. All you have to do is order online for next day pickup, or if you want them to deliver it, they can do that as well.
You can store your healthy meals right in the fridge, and when you get hungry, just heat them up.
Personally, my favorite is the chicken corn chowder.
How about those turkey chili cheese fries?
And if you need a healthy snack, they even have healthy muffins and cookies.
They're gluten-free, they're macro-friendly. Fed Up Kitchen meals are high in protein and low in carbs and fat.
It's healthy eating made easy. Go to fedupkitchen.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
A new accident in Midvale. This is right in the intersection of Fort Union Boulevard. That's about 7100 South at 9th East. And we still have the cleanup of the crash at Highland Drive and 5000 South. It's been 30 years since Richard Paul Evans wrote The Christmas Box. Now there's a beautiful 30-year anniversary edition. Pick up your copies today. Share the magic again. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, the inversion sticks around today and tomorrow. The air quality is getting worse. Highs will be around 40, and a cold system will bring snow and cleaner air on Friday. A chance of snow continues through Sunday. Right now, 31 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bonas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
It's no secret that Congress is dysfunctional to the highest levels. Many lawmakers are jumping ship rather than running for re-election. We've got fights breaking out, verbal, physical, and otherwise. Nothing's getting done despite a broken immigration system, crushing national debt and deficit spending, and everyone's still just kind of opining for better days. So we're going to look at that in this segment of what it will actually take, and that begins with getting rid of Fantasyland on the left, right, and the center. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, I'm sure you didn't think we'd be starting our program today talking about Fantasyland, but that is where we're going today. And it's really an interesting thing. There was a tremendous piece today in Politico by Stephen Pearlstein talking about why Congress is so perpetually dysfunctional. And it has to do with Fantasyland. And we're going to break that down in just a second. But I want to lay the groundwork in terms of where that is and what people are actually saying from the left, right, and center in terms of why there is such a disconnect from all of these different factions within Congress. You may remember that Ken Buck, who's been in the middle of a lot of big battles in Congress, a Republican from Colorado, he recently announced that he was not going to run for re-election. And his reason? Dysfunction in Congress.
Americans are rightfully concerned about our nation's future and are looking to Republicans in Washington for a course correction. But their hope for Republicans to take decisive action may be in vain. I made the decision to leave Congress because tough votes are being replaced by social media status. It's time to stop feeding popular narratives and start addressing the long-term solutions.
And so that's a Republican calling out Republicans, saying that part of the problem is that it's become very performative within Congress. And even though Republicans are in the majority in the House, too many showboats and not enough people interested in real good policy. Not too long ago, we had Roy Teixeira from AEI on with us talking about what's going on the left. He's actually the author of a book that's called Where Have All the Democrats Gone? And he told me that Democrats are increasingly out of touch with what was once their very core of their constituency, the working class.
Mostly in the 21st century, the Democrats are not only are culturally liberal, but they definitely move in the direction of being culturally radical in a whole range of issues, from race, gender, crime, immigration, and so on, which really reflects more the views of the college-educated liberals who now dominate the party than it does sort of the median working-class voter. And we think that's just gotten stronger over time and has really come to define the Democrats in a lot of people's eyes. So as a result, the Democrats, well, they're no longer the party of the working class. They're more working-class voters vote Republican than Democratic, and that's pretty interesting.
So there you have some left-leaning folks lamenting the fact that the left has left the working class and what was once their core constituency. Now, earlier this year, we spoke with Phil Wallach, also from American Enterprise Institute, and he is someone who is focused on the essence of Congress and what these different factions and why political parties are part of the problem and why there's a better way to get these groups to come together.
What's really at the essence of Congress comes from James Madison, especially the very famous argument in Federalist Number 10, where he talks about the interplay of factions and creating a sense of balance and protecting against abuses by putting these factions into motion and sort of setting them against each other, setting them in the process of having to accommodate each other. And that's really what Congress needs to do. That's its institutional advantage, is to be a place where all these different factions can have voices and find ways of creating coalitions of strange bedfellows, producing unexpected things. Mix up all the elements of American life and see what they manage to come up with together. It ought to be kind of surprising and not just a matter of implementing some predetermined partisan agenda. So the revival or renewal scenario depends on sort of restoring this sense of factional interplay, getting it so it's not just all about the two sides' top partisan leaders making deals in the back room, but actually sort of letting a broader mix of elements come into interaction with each other and seeing what happens.
So important perspective there from Phil Wallach. And so as we look at the left, as we look at the right, as we try to figure out what this is really supposed to look like, I think what Phil is suggesting is that if we're going to really renew and have a pure revival in the effectiveness of Congress, that the factional interplay is important. It's the way it was designed. What was not part of it and what many warned of is the partisan, the political party component to it, where that drives everything, where you just have these top leaders in both parties making all the deals, being in the rooms where it happens, and having everyone else outside looking in. So now I want to dive into kind of the fantasy land and how we get past all of that. And there's really 3 points that Steve Pearlstein pointed out in Politico today. and that there's really just these three illusions that are driving the dysfunction in Congress. One is a right-wing fantasy, one is a left-wing progressive fantasy, and one is a moderate fantasy. So there's fantasy all the way around. And so as we look at how that plays out, the right wing has believed and continues to believe that they can bully their way along and just hold on and hold out until they exhaust everyone else. And then they will be able to move forward. Voters will accept it, and they can conquer the party, meaning the Republican Party, and ultimately lead the country. So that's what's happening, the fantasy land of the right. Now, on the fantasy of the progressive left wing, the progressive wing believes that all of America is actually on their side. And if they just stay in lockstep together and they can win a couple more elections, they'll be in the majority, and they'll stay in the majority for a generation. That they'll have the House, the Senate, the White House, and they'll be able to bring on all of these things that they believe the American people are with them on anyway. I'm not sure what polling they're looking at, but they are increasingly disconnected from the core of the country. And I would say the same of the fantasy of the right. They think that the American people are with them all the way. It's just not true. It's just not where the American people are. The elites of both sides are really living in fantasy land. Now, let's talk about the fantasy in the middle, the moderate fantasy. And the moderate wing believes that they can form this bipartisan governing majority, but they're not taking into account the fact that all the incentives are against them. And what usually happens with the moderate wing is that they run out of energy before they run out of opportunity, and they often wimp out against the party pressure. We actually saw this play out not too long ago in the fight for the speakership. There was a group there, the Problem Solver Caucus in the House, 62 members that are equally divided, Republican and Democrat, who have come together on some important things, and they had a chance to change the game and change the dynamic. But in the end, they couldn't pull the trigger because of party pressure. And so you have this fantasy land stuff going on from the left, the right, and the center that isn't really addressing the challenges that are going on. And so until we can get out of fantasy land, we're going to keep playing this crazy land that we call Congress, because the crazies will continue to run the asylum, because the far left and the far right will continue to dominate, while the middle will continue to just be hopeful, but without a strategy. And while hope is very important, hope is not a strategy. You have to have more than that. Hope's important, but you got to have a strategy to actually execute it. And I think coming up in 2024, there are going to be plenty of opportunities to get to that kind of conversation. And we can actually start talking about a different kind of conversation coming along. And it won't be fantasy land anymore, because it's when we finally realize that it's the center left to center right of the country that is the majority. And when the majority realizes they're the majority, they can put the fantasy and the crazy of the left and the crazy of the right in their proper place in the minority. And we can have a different kind of discussion in our nation's capital.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. It's the week after Thanksgiving and all over town. The shoppers are restless. Great deals to be found. KSL traffic reporters watch their monitors with care, guiding listeners safely from here to there. Andy, Ricky, and Len, the ones to trust when your holiday travel's a must. Every 10 minutes on the 9s from now through Christmas time. So stop by before you go to KSL News Radio.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
The memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, coming to theaters on December 8th, rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Happy 62nd birthday, Granddad.
Thanks, sweetheart.
I got you this.
A mug. What does it say? Beware. If you are 60 or older, you may be at increased risk of serious consequences from RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, compared to adults younger than 60.
Not all dangers come with warning labels. Talk to your pharmacist or doctor about getting vaccinated against RSV today. RSV vaccines, including Pfizer's, are available. Learn more at bewareofrsv.com. Brought to you by Pfizer.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
Advanced Window Products is having their biggest sale of the year. If your old windows let the winter cold seep in, now's the time to get the highest quality double-pane windows and custom insulated frames. Advanced Window Products is a local company that crafts beautiful precision frames right here in Salt Lake City for 37 years. And the magic is, they cut out the middleman. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. So you save on the highest quality windows and frames. Any style, any color, any questions? Yes, financing. They offer 60-month, 0% financing. They'll even let you put off the first payment up to 2 years, and while that's tempting to think about, the reason to call them right now is the biggest sale of the year. This month only, when they do your entire home of 10 windows or more, you get $3,500 off plus a free premium glass upgrade. So call Advanced Window Products right now, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or advancedwindowsusa.com.
At Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and to extend the legacy of care in our communities. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
With our roots in northern Utah, Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospitals have a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. We're part of 20 hospitals and 240 clinics across Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
The secret is out. Snowbird is a different breed of mountain. Enjoy Utah's deepest and steepest skiing and snowboarding this season by visiting snowbird.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Salt Lake City is all but a lock on hosting the 2034 Winter Olympics after today's announcement from the International Olympic Committee. Second, UDOT is asking for public input on a plan to expand the Timpanogos Highway in northern Utah County. Third, a vote to kick George Santos out of Congress has been delayed until Friday. Right now, 31 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God?
Yes.
Congratulations, you are now a member of the 118th Congress.
That was from yesterday evening when Celeste Malloy joined Congress as the newest member of the United States Congress, replacing Congressman Chris Stewart as the representative from Utah's 2nd Congressional District. Representative Malloy is joining Congress at a time, of course, of immense change and big-time challenges as the decisions facing Congress in the coming months and years are going to have a huge impact on the direction of the country and so much of what happens right here in the state of Utah. She's representing a very diverse district in the 2nd Congressional District, but with both the far right and the far left living in fantasy land, as we talked about in our first segment today. I think Celeste Malloy has an opportunity to be a breath of fresh air, to bring a different perspective, to bring a rural perspective, I think, to the Utah delegation. That will be a very promising component to what takes place in the months ahead. And so I want to break down just a little bit of what took place last night because I think it's both historic. I think it's also really important as she takes that mantle and begins also recognizing that she'll also start a re-election campaign coming up in January. So she has a very big bite and a very long chew ahead of her as a member of Congress rolling through the end of this year. There's some big decisions that she's already going to be voting on this week. And then she'll be into a lot of new things when we get into January. But I want to start last night. The leader of the Utah delegation, the senior representative now, John Curtis, introduced Representative Celeste Malloy on the House floor. He gave a brief overview of her legal career and campaign, which led to this moment.
Since beginning her late career, she's worked as a deputy county attorney, a public lands attorney for the Utah Association of Counties, and most recently as the chief legal counsel to former Congressman Chris Stewart. In a special election, Celeste assembled a coalition of both rural and urban voters. She was unafraid to stand for conservative principles, calling for debate in each of her 13 counties. In her district, she's known to be a hard worker, level-headed, and consistently conservative.
So that was Representative John Curtis as he welcomed Representative Malloy to the United States Congress and to the Utah delegation. I want to go to Representative Malloy's speech because I think she crushed it from the speech department. This was really well done, really well focused, and very authentic to who she is, what she ran on, and I think what she'll represent in Utah's 2nd Congressional District. So in her maiden voyage, her first speech to the House of Representatives, she did something very unique. I'm guessing this has never been done in the history of Congress. She spoke of her time growing up and talking about the future farmers of America and their motto. Take a listen.
I was very involved in FFA in high school, and my freshman year, I memorized the FFA creed. In the first paragraph, there's a sentence that says, "I believe in the promise of better days through better ways, even as the better things we now enjoy have come to us through the struggles of former years." And I think that perfectly describes how I feel right now about being a member of the United States House of Representatives. I believe in the promise of better days through better ways. I'm excited to be here now when there are really important conversations happening and when an individual can have a huge impact.
I love that. I love the fact that we have someone quoting the future farmers of America on the House floor in our nation's capital, and that it's someone from Utah's 2nd Congressional District who understands what that means and gets that. And I love that. Better days through better ways. And if ever there was a time that we needed exactly that in the United States Congress, it is today. Representative Malloy went on to speak about the struggles and triumphs of those who came before, paving the way for her and indeed for all of us to be where we are today.
And I also want to acknowledge the struggles of former years and that we live in an absolutely wonderful, great country because of the people who came before us and had important conversations and struggles and inched us ever closer to the ideal, the American dream, the principles that are embodied in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence.
Representative Malloy closed out her speech with some humble thanks and acknowledgement of the responsibility, and I thought that was a poignant moment there on the floor of the House of Representatives, this responsibility, recognizing the mantle of that given to her by the people of Utah's 2nd Congressional District.
So I just want to humbly say how excited I am to be here and how much it means to me to be representing the people in Utah's 2nd Congressional District. I don't take that title lightly. I want to make sure my constituents know that I'm here to truly represent them and that I'm optimistic, that I'm excited to serve, and that I understand what a great honor and what a rare privilege it is to be standing here on the House floor right now giving a speech. So thank you.
And that's Representative Celeste Malloy as she was sworn in yesterday and actually brought the chamber back to its full capacity. 435 members are again in the House of Representatives. Very important on a lot of the big votes that will be coming up in the days ahead. Representative Malloy is not going to get a nice, easy coast in to her time in Congress. She's going to have some big choices, some big debates, and some big votes to be cast in the days ahead relating to Ukraine funding, support for Israel, security on our southern border, funding of the government, and the list goes on and on and on. And they've got to get all that done before the end of the year, by the way. And so we'll see how that all plays out and what her role will be and what her voice will be in all of those things. And I hope that she is able to take that idea of Better Days Through Better Ways that she used as the center point of her first speech. And again, representing rural Utah, having the Future Farmer of America creed as part of that maiden speech on the House floor, I think was very significant. Of course, Representative Malloy is the only woman in the Utah congressional delegation, 5th in our state's history. So she's stepping into an important role at a very important time for the state of Utah. She made comments to the press, including to Roll Call, talking about her first priority is going to be to make sure that all of the projects and all of the pieces of legislation that we're moving forward under Representative Chris Stewart, especially those relating to rural Utah, that those would stay on path, on track, and not miss a beat. And she's made that clear to the staff there in Washington, D.C., that they have lots of work to do and some projects to finish up that are very important for those local communities, those rural communities here in the state of Utah. And again, I think Representative Malloy represented the state as well as the 2nd Congressional District in a very fine way as she launched her time in Congress, taking that oath of office, receiving that from the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And again, she was flanked there by her colleagues from the Utah delegation and many supporters from the state of Utah as well. And so we wish her well as she begins, and we look forward to having her back on the program for some updates on the crucial conversations. And if she can actually show the Utah way, the better way, that will actually lead to some better days for the state and for the country. And we'll continue to watch that. All right, we're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news. When we come back, more Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, Salt Lake City now on the fast track to hosting another Winter Olympic Games. The announcement came this morning from Carl Stoss, who chairs the Future Host Commission for the International Olympic Committee.
The Executive Board today followed the recommendation of the Future Host Commission to invite the French Alps and Salt Lake City, Utah, into respective targeted dialogues to host the Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games 2030 and 2034.
Stoss said the fact that Salt Lake City already has its venues in place was one of the strengths of its bid, along with public support. A final decision on the 2034 Games will be made next year. The Ogden Airport will soon offer inexpensive commercial flights thanks to a new partnership with Breeze Airlines. Ogden Mayor Mike Caldwell explained that those flights will go to and from Southern California.
That's the number one market where persons living within 25 miles of the Ogden Airport want to fly.
Caldwell thinks this will do big things for tourism and jobs in northern Utah. You can book the flights online now, but they start running in February. Our top national story this hour from ABC News, with more and more Democrats criticizing Israel for its conduct of the war with Hamas. The highest-ranking Jewish member of Congress is speaking out. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
In a 45-minute floor speech, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the debate over the Israel-Hamas war is too often crossing over into anti-Semitism. And America's highest-ranking elected Jewish official said he's had enough of what he sees as one-way denunciations being leveled by progressives.
Why does the criticism for any civilian death seem to fall exclusively on Israel and not at all on Hamas.
Amid pressure from activists, key Democrats are increasingly saying aid for Israel shouldn't amount to a blank check. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average has declined quite a bit. It's not quite into negative territory now, but it's down to just 6 points up on the day. And the NASDAQ has crossed into negative territory. It's now down 25 points. Our KSL weather, that inversion is just sticking around. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Get ready, Utah! It's Medicare annual enrollment period, so why not make enrolling easier with United Healthcare? Whether you choose our online tools or over-the-phone support, United Healthcare will help you compare options so you can choose a plan with confidence. This is Medicare made for Utah, trusted everywhere. Explore our wide range of plans by calling United Healthcare today at 1-855-MEET-UHC. That's 1-855-MEET-UHC. Annual enrollment begins October 15th and ends December 7th, so call today.
Holiday stories from Shane Company customers.
My girlfriend thinks we're going to my parents' house to decorate the tree. She has no idea that I'm actually planning to propose. The whole family's in on it, and Shane Company helped me create the perfect ring and stay within my budget. I went with a classic ring with an oval diamond. I tell you, that diamond, I can't wait to see the look on her face.
Shop the largest selection of unique engagement rings in hand-picked diamonds. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company. Fine jewelry since 1929.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month. A savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-330-1991. That's 1-800-330-1991. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-330-1991. SelectQuote. We shop, you save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
They say that nothing worth having should be easy, and I kind of agree, but some things that are worth having are worth the effort, and for me, it's soda weight loss. The soda weight loss journey that I've been on, I'm now reaching my 7th week, and I have lost just under 35 pounds, which is a little bit under 5 pounds a week. I can feel it. My collars on my shirts are looser. I'm getting into smaller pant sizes. This week was kind of a tough one for me. I was hungry at different times. The time change really threw me off, and I felt hungrier than I normally did. But I was tempted to break. I came close to breaking, but I stuck with it because really the result to me is worth the effort that I'm putting in as I go. But I'd like you to check out all the reviews on SOTA's website, sotaweightloss.com, SOTA weightloss.com, and check out the 8,200 plus reviews of people who are having the same results like I am on SOTA, which stands for State of the Art.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
No problems on the Valley freeways, but crews are still working on this crash in the intersection of Midvale, Fort Union Boulevard. That's about 7100 south at 900 east. Live at the Eccles presents an orchestral Christmas with Marie Osmond. 2 shows Saturday, and this is December 2nd at the Eccles Theater. Tickets at liveeccles.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, that inversion just won't go away, at least not until we get a storm in here on Friday. But the chance of snow then will continue through Sunday. And right now we're at 32 degrees, partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Always a pleasure to have joining us on the program Samuel Abrams, a professor of politics at Sarah Lawrence College, also a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And Sam, welcome back to the show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You wrote a fantastic piece at Deseret.com talking about the leadership role that college presidents should be taking as it relates to the kinds of conversations and how we have those conversations on college campuses.
Absolutely. So for a while now, those of us who have been pushing to promote viewpoint diversity and real discourse and dialogue, which is at the very heart and soul of universities, we've been saying we need to do it and that it's valuable. But one of the things we've lacked is evidence showing how when you do promote that and you actually protect those values and virtues, we see speech improve. That's something that, again, in theory makes a lot of sense, but it's always good to have the data. And it turns out that the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, has in its most recent survey data a whole set of questions about does your leadership, does your college president, do your deans, do they protect free speech? Will they protect free speech? Will they promote diverse voices on campus? And it turns out that when they do, or when students perceive that they do, the speech environment dramatically improves on college and university campuses. And this is incredibly powerful evidence to say that, yes, we need to teach our students about this and talk about it, but the leaders need to lead. And they've been conspicuously absent now over the past few years. And this is sort of a call to say, hey, presidents, you can't just be fundraisers. You need to showcase why speech matters and then stand by it and lead, because when you do, our students are much less likely to censor and are much more likely to question, which is the whole point of higher education.
Yeah, and that is so vital that we are having those, and that the leaders from the president on through the administration, the advisors, the faculty, everyone has to be modeling what that actually looks like. We know in a lot of cases, again, especially in light of the October 7th atrocities, that in many cases it's become more of a role of leaders on campus to define terms, define what speech is and is not, what is and is not acceptable, as opposed to modeling, here's what having this kind of conversation should look like on a college campus.
Yeah, exactly right. And as someone who cares so deeply about our students learning and educating and questioning, that's exactly what's happening. And it's a disaster, quite frankly, because the presidents, through their diversity offices, and the presidents are well aware of this. This is not something they can say, oh, well, we didn't understand this. They know. At this point, they understand what they're doing. They've tasked this huge apparatus, and we've talked about it on the show a few times, their diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, whatever you want to call it, office. They've tasked these folks to set the agenda. What can you ask? What can't you ask? What is considered an inappropriate or offensive question? What is a fair question? Which group of people are entitled to special protections? Which group of people are not entitled to special protections? When these are heavy and latent and hovering over you on campus, open debate and learning dies. And they need to end. And presidents can do that, and boards can do that. And again, now that we have the evidence, people should be saying to their boards, we know how to improve speech. We know how to make this university better. You need to act. And if you fail to act, why are you failing to act? And hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's such an important piece. And I know you've been traveling across the East Coast there and observing this on campuses. Those who are getting it right, what does that look like? What does that feel like on the college campus?
So there are some schools that are actually getting it right. Not many. Places in Florida have taken the lead in this. Texas has taken the lead. Schools like the University of Chicago have taken the lead. And it looks like students are able to question. And it looks like students are less likely to simply hold their tongues and sit on their hands when they want to raise them. And we see much happier students. We see lower levels of stress. We see lower levels of anxiety. And we see, higher ed flourish. The problem is it's hard to point to a whole lot of examples because the states that are pushing back now have just begun. And, it's happening in a bunch of other states. Right now, the DEI pushback is occurring in Ohio, for instance. So it's going to take some time to showcase it. But I think you're going to see happier students very, very quickly. I think you're going to see better educated students very quickly. And I think you're going to see a lot less anger. Protests will diminish because quite frankly, you don't need to be outraged. The outrage engine, we can dismantle that, and say, we're here to learn. We're not here to be outraged. Why are you telling me how to think? So I suspect we're going to see, students are allowed to be frustrated. Students are allowed to be uncomfortable. That's a good thing in higher ed. But I think the anxiety and the fear that grips so many of our students today of cancel culture, of social ostracization, all of that's going to end.
I think that's such an important way to frame all that. I love the way you've put that together in terms of dismantling the outrage machine, because I think that has inhibited so much learning and created a distress. Stress is okay for people to feel that and to feel all of those emotions, but when it becomes that distress, when they're looking over their shoulder or they're looking out for the word police or whatever it may be, then we've stopped the learning that should be really the heart and soul of a good college campus.
No, I love the way you frame that. Stress is not inherently a bad thing. It's how we grow. It's how we learn. It's how we know something is not exactly right and how we prosper from it and develop from it. But the distress, and I love that. I think I'm going to steal that if it's okay from you, with you. That level of distress that they're having, that anxiety, that fear, that pit in their stomach, I see it everywhere. We're thinking about the Hamas attack, for instance. The UN and the United States, many people have declared Hamas as a terrorist organization. I don't think there's anything to debate about that. They brutally murdered over 1,000 people. I don't even want to go into the other level of atrocities that they committed. Students are distressed to simply call out that truth and talk about that truth. That tells you we're doing something wrong. Now, we can debate Palestinian work vis-a-vis Israel. We can discuss and debate openly what's right, what's wrong. That's fair game. But there is a truth, and that is that absolute I can't even describe the act of horror that was committed back in October. The fact that we can't say that happened because of the thought police, because of DEI, that is causing that level of distress. We can eliminate DEI pretty quickly. Presidents can say, this is the truth. This is what happened. And Ben Sasse at the University of Florida was one of the first people who actually wrote about that and said, this isn't hard. Yeah. That was an act of terror. Let's move on. That's what we should be having and should be saying.
Yeah, and he is a great voice. He became a dear friend when I was back in Washington, D.C., and it was hard to have him leave the Senate, but he's doing great work there at the University of Florida. And I wanted to get your take on this real quickly. We had a conversation with Rabbi Brad Hirschfield from there in New York, and we also had former Senator Joe Lieberman on the show yesterday. And this all funnels into where you've been leading us on this conversation, and that is this idea that you can have genuine compassion. Compassion demands that we have sorrow for every life that's lost, and this idea that we can condemn evil, that those are actually compatible principles. And you pointed this out, that this takes leadership, moral clarity, commitment to the principles of a liberal education, and I think authentic compassion that's not conflating and the yeah buts and, comparison stuff. How do we get to that conversation, and how do we get our leaders to lead in that way?
So it's funny. I am very glad that President or Senator Sasse, whatever the appropriate title is, I'm very glad he's not in the Senate, quite frankly. Because the value he can create by leading in Florida, through University of Florida, that's a big school, and it's a very well regarded institution. If we can showcase exactly how those values and virtues work, which are such Jewish values, and I love those values, if we can showcase that you can hold these things concurrently, and it doesn't have to be a yeah, but, we can help transform a generation. And in many respects, I think that someone like President Sasse is perfectly situated to be in a university leadership position. We need more people of that caliber and who hold that level of clarity. The problem with our Gen Zers is that they rarely see that level of clarity. It's hard to point to great leaders anymore who can say, this is just what happened. This is the truth. There are moral lines we do not cross, and there are certain truths that are simply true. It's not a yeah, but. It's not a situation where somehow you justify Hamas because of Israel. It doesn't work that way. The problem is we just don't see leaders doing that adequately. There are few, but they're very, very few. And I think that we need more people to speak up. And I'm hopeful that one of the silver linings here is that it has mobilized certainly the Jewish community to speak up, and certainly the Catholic community to speak up. I've been in contact with many Catholic folks and many other folks of faith. And, they say, well, what can we do? And I've actually said, this is the time to speak.
Yeah.
I'm grateful President Sasse has done that. We need a lot more of that. And once we model that behavior, and this is why presidents need to step up, an example of a failure of that would be President Ono, I believe his last name is, the new president of the University of Michigan, who originally condemned Hamas and then just did a complete about-face a couple of days ago, again, invoking moral relativism and so on.
Yeah.
And that was a mistake, a huge mistake.
And I think you've nailed it just spot on in terms of this is that moment to stand up, to speak out, and to speak truth with that kind of clarity and compassion, because that is what will, as you very rightly said, that is what will transform a generation. And I know that's what you get up and do every day there at Sarah Lawrence College and as a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And thanks for helping us transform our conversation today as well. Always a gift. Samuel Abrams joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds good.
As the year winds down, the storylines are ramping up.
Mystery virus in dogs continues to baffle veterinarians.
Homelessness in Utah has been steadily increasing.
Good accumulating snow expected in the mountains.
Keep up with these and the stories still to come. Listen to Tim and Amanda in the morning from 5 to 9. David Dujanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. And on your drive home, get breaking updates and Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News from 3 to 7. All day, all season, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Guys, your promise is your word, right? You stick by it, you live by it. So does Revive Men's Health with our Revive Promise for low T and ED. The Revive Promise means your tests and lab work are free when you begin treatment, and our low T and ED treatments are money back guaranteed. Yes, that's right. We stand behind our treatments and our results. That's our promise to you. Revive Men's Health has successfully helped thousands of men with low T, ED, and sexual health issues since 2011. If you're experiencing symptoms like chronic low energy, less drive, sleep issues, weight gain, poor performance, bad moods, or ED, you need Revive. Don't settle. Get affordable, guaranteed custom low T and ED solutions with lasting results from Salt Lake City's favorite men's clinic. And remember, there are no extra bills when you begin treatment. All labs and tests are free, and your low T and ED treatments are money-back guaranteed. Call Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City today to schedule your appointment. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you have a drain that's clogged or backed up, after you've tried the plungers and products, the next step usually involves some kind of drain snake or cabling equipment. You see, sometimes the blockage is far enough down the line that you need special equipment that most homeowners just don't have. That's where the Drains Department at Any Hour Services can help. A drain snake can clear most blockages and get the water flowing again, and clearing blocked drains is what our Drains Department does day in and day out. So if you're a homeowner with a drain line that's clogged or backed up and you'd like one of our drain technicians to come and snake the line for you, it's only $29. Yep, you heard that right. Any Hour Services will snake any drain line with normal access for only $29. Sinks, showers, tubs, toilets, floor drains, laundry drains, even that sewer main line that connects to the city. We'll snake any line for just $29. For help with your drain issues, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7700. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Dear Santa, thank you so much for remembering me this year. Christmas was the best. Thank you for the shoes, and I love the coat you brought. It's so cute and so warm.
At KSL, it's our hope that every child will have a warm and joyful holiday season. Please donate generously to KSL's Quarters for Christmas.
Every dollar raised goes to buy shoes and warm clothes for Utah children in need. Give what you can at KSLQuarters.com.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. Earlier today, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer rose and gave a speech that I think should be replayed and remembered for a long time. I disagree with Senator Schumer on a whole host of things, but he is someone that I admire and respect, and he knows how to put a speech together. He knows what principles and issues matter. The speech that he gave today addressed the very concerning and rapid rise of anti-Semitism in our country, particularly in the wake of the October 7th terrorist attack in Israel by Hamas. And this is a message informed by history for current times in our country, and I think Senator Schumer delivered it at a crucial moment in a very powerful way. And so we're going to break this down, and we're going to do this over two segments today. We're going to take a look kind of at the high level in terms of what it means today, and then we're going to come back at 2:50, and I don't want you to miss that. When we come back at 2:50, we're going to get into the history that Senator Schumer went through in his speech that I think is so vital for us. If we do not learn those lessons from history, we really are doomed to repeat them, and often we double down on them, and it ends up even worse in the end. And so let's start with his speech today. He began by remarking on the rise of anti-Semitism in America and the difference in which this problem is being perceived by Jewish members of our communities and others.
I feel compelled to speak because I'm the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in America, and I have noticed a significant disparity between how Jewish people regard the rise of anti-Semitism and how many of my non-Jewish friends regard it. To us, the rise of anti-Semitism is a crisis, a five-alarm fire that must be extinguished. For so many other people of goodwill, it is merely a problem, a matter of concern. So today, I want to use my platform to explain why so many Jewish people see this problem as a crisis.
They do see it as a crisis, and I thought this was really significant. Senator Schumer noted in his speech that there are many Jewish people who have significant disagreements over policy in Israel and the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. There's a lot of criticism. We've been covering a lot of that over the course of the year in terms of what's been going on, changes to the judiciary, turmoil inside of Israel and the Israeli government. But the focus here is on the rise of extreme rhetoric against Israel that's affecting all Jewish people, regardless of their political positions.
Many, if not most, Jewish Americans, including myself, support a two-state solution. We disagree with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his administration's encouragement of militant settlers in the West Bank, which has become a considerable obstacle to a two-state nation. Some of the most extreme rhetoric against Israel has emboldened anti-Semites who are attacking Jewish people simply because they are Jewish, independent of anything having to do with Israel.
That's so significant. We're going to come back to that at 2:50 today. The senator talked about why many Jewish people feel worried about the rhetoric that they're seeing at marches to support the cause of Palestinian people.
Obviously, many of those marching here in the U.S. do not have any evil intent. But when Jewish people hear chants like "From the river to the sea," a founding slogan of Hamas, a terrorist group that is not shy about their goal to eradicate the Jewish people in Israel and around the globe, we are alarmed. When we see signs in the crowd that read, "By any means necessary," after the most violent attack ever against Israeli civilians, we are appalled. More than anything, we're worried, quite naturally, given the twists and turns of history, about where these actions and sentiments could eventually lead.
We're going to come back to those twists and turns of history and Senator Schumer's ability to turn the phrase to make the point and illustrate the principle. Senator Schumer stated what was becoming increasingly clear, and that is this, that anti-Semitic people and groups are using the pro-Palestinian movement to advance hatred against the Jewish people, and too many of America's people are unknowingly or unwittingly contributing to this.
Anti-Semites are taking advantage of the pro-Palestinian movement to espouse hatred and bigotry towards Jewish people. But rather than call out this dangerous behavior for what it is, we see so many of our friends and fellow citizens, particularly young people who yearn for justice, unknowingly aiding and abetting their cause. Many of our friends and allies have brushed aside these concerns. Suddenly, they don't want to hear about anti-Semitism or the ultimate goal of Hamas. When I've asked some of the marchers what they would do about Hamas, they don't have an answer. Many don't seem to care. And so Jewish Americans are left alone.
Senator Schumer also gave every American a call to action in this speech, something that he's exceptionally good at. He said that we must learn the lessons of history and clearly call out and condemn action and speech of anti-Semitism wherever and wherever we see it.
I am speaking up to issue a warning informed by lessons of history too often forgotten. No matter what our beliefs, no matter where we stand on the war in Gaza, all of us must condemn anti-Semitism with full-throated clarity wherever we see it before it metastasizes into something even worse. The vitriol against Israel in the wake of October 7th is all too often crossing a line into brazen and widespread anti-Semitism, the likes of which we haven't seen for generations in this country, which is why we need to name it clearly anytime we see it.
We have to name it, we have to call it out, we have to condemn it. Stay with us. We're going to revisit this topic and Senator Schumer's speech, which I think is a landmark address, even by Senator Schumer's standards. We're going to do that coming up at 2:50. Senator Schumer is a student of history. I watched him do this at President Obama's second inaugural, where he gave the best speech of the day, tapping into the power of history to teach important principles and important lessons for our time. So we'll do that coming up at 2:50. That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources. We'll come back with hour number 2. Stay with us right here on KSL News Radio.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. The International Olympic Committee will be talking to Salt Lake City about hosting the Winter Olympics in 2034. That's a big step forward in the selection process. Olympic athletes who call Utah home say they couldn't be more excited to see that happening. Ted Ligety says being a kid watching the games in 2002 inspired him to become Ted Ligety.
What I was really fortunate to do was to forerun the slalom, which I was not even close to being of the competitive caliber, but to see the best in the world on their biggest day, acting similar to my friends and I were at local races, was a huge realization to realize that these dreams were achievable.
Ligety went on to win gold just 4 years later as the first Utah born and raised kid to do that. Keeping up with winter weather, one reason why the Wall Street Journal has ranked Salt Lake City's International Airport among the most reliable in the country. Operations Director Trevor Anderson says the airlines put a lot of effort into de-icing, including cleaning up the chemicals afterward.
We make sure that we collect as much of it as we can from an environmental standpoint and actually refine it and resell it.
The ranking is based on keeping flights on schedule and avoiding cancellations. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Police in Newport Beach, California say they're now investigating claims made against a basketball player with the NBA. Oklahoma City Thunder's Josh Giddey. ABC's Alex Stone reports.
The allegation surfaced anonymously online against Thunder guard Josh Giddey in a now deleted post, the claim being he had an improper relationship with a high school girl. Newport Beach police confirmed ABC News allegations are being looked at, but police say details are limited. They say they're looking into whether a crime occurred. Giddey is 21 and declined to comment.
I get the question, guys. I completely understand you guys want to know about it, but just for right now, I don't have anything to say.
For now, Giddey continues to play for Oklahoma City. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average at near the close of trading, up just 13 points on the day is all, while the NASDAQ has slipped into negative territory, down 23 points right now. And our KSL weather, that inversion, just going to linger for another day or more. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:02.
We have enough people.
Everybody knows that exterior remodeling salespeople are all about the high-pressure sell. Am I right? Windows, siding, gutters, those suckers are going to twist your arm and get you to buy, or they won't leave your house at night. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and I want you to know we don't have high-pressure sells. In fact, we don't even have salespeople. Nope. We have estimators. That's a huge difference. Estimators are trained to look at the entire scope of the project, to see and know if there are any problems, like rotten wood, wood-borne insects, or construction issues specific to your house or your neighbors. Salespeople are more concerned about playing those silly price games. Buy one, get one free, sign today and get 40% off, as if they didn't just jack the price up to give you a fake discount. RGS Exteriors estimators are going to give you a great quote. No games, no tricks, no nonsense. Call RGS Exteriors to quote your exterior project. Our number is 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's rgsutah.com.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
Back to a quiet commute. No accidents and no delays on your Valley freeways. Get 2 weeks of free healthy meals with Fed Up Kitchen's Black Friday BOGO sale. Buy one 4-week meal program, get another 4 weeks half off. Don't miss this deal. Order now at fedupkitchen.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, the inversion won't go away until we get a system that brings in snow and cleaner air on Friday. And right now, we're at 34 degrees, partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bonas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, it's a very busy day in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. It's also a busy day here in the state of Utah, and someone who's got some perspective and has been in the middle of a lot of those crucial conversations. U.S. Senator Mitt Romney joined us on the line. Senator, thanks for joining us today. And as we dive into this, before we get to the Olympic-size financial problems we've got in this country that you're working on, give us a real quick perspective. It's a big Olympic day here in the state of Utah with the announcement earlier today, and you have a little bit of a backstage pass in terms of what that actually means.
And if the Olympics in 2034 are anything like those in 2002, they will be transformative for the community. We'll draw closer. People with differences will come to know each other a little better because we'll work as volunteers with each other. We'll celebrate the highs and lows together. It's a wonderful experience for the community, and it's really an opportunity for people to serve the world, to serve these young athletes, to demonstrate great qualities of humanity around the world. It's a marvelous thing to be able to host the Olympics, and congratulations to Fraser Bullock, who led the effort and has over the last two decades to stay involved with the Olympic movement, such that we'd be a credible contender.
Yeah, really a great day here for the state of Utah. Now we want to get to another area where we do need the nation to come together, and that's dealing with our financial house and getting that in order. And you've been part of a group that's been bringing people from across the political spectrum together to take a new look and a new approach to seeing if we can't get this under control. Give us some sense in terms of the Fiscal Stability Act and some of the testimony you gave in the House today.
Well, yeah, we really have a challenge in Washington, which is if there's an issue that is partisan, it's very hard in today's political environment to make any progress at all. And so, on the Democrat side, there's the view, hey, we want to increase our spending. We don't want to reduce any spending at all. And on the Republican side, we're not going to raise any taxes at all. And what this has resulted in is deficits of, almost $2 trillion a year, a massive debt. Our debt as a share of our economy is now comparable to Greece and Italy and the countries that got in trouble just a few years ago. So this is something we've got to tackle. And Senator Manchin and I and a bunch of Republicans and Democrats in both houses and in both sides of the aisle have introduced legislation to put together a commission to see if we can't find a small group to come up with a bipartisan plan, which then goes to the floor of each chamber and is voted up or down.
I love that. And so let's unpack that a little bit in terms of what that would look like, in terms of what this, as I understand, a 16-member bipartisan bicameral commission. Give us a sense of what that would look like and what would they really be going after.
Well, the group would be, as you say, 16 people. There would be 12 of them, which would be members of either the House or the Senate, and then there'd be 4 outside experts. Only the members, the elected people, can vote on whether we have reached a consensus. At the end of some period of time, probably a year and a half or so, if they've been able to reach consensus, we would have a vote of the entire House and Senate, each chamber pursuing their own, if you will, rules to vote up or down. And the idea is we would look at all spending. All the spending, it's everything from Medicare and Medicaid to defense spending to the domestic spending on a whole host of programs. Everything is on the table. We look at taxes as well. We look at new sources of revenue or improving old sources. So everything's on the table. The objective is to stabilize how much debt we have as a percentage of our economy. We're not saying you got to get to zero, meaning no debt or no deficit. We just can't keep on getting more and more in debt.
Yeah, and you mentioned places like Greece and Venezuela that didn't end well as they continued to have that increase in terms of debt to GDP. And we know, particularly as the interest rates have continued to climb, and that's created a whole nother complexity in terms of just the interest on the debt is becoming a major driver. And then you also mentioned those big entitlement programs as well as revenue sources. Give us a little more detail in that space, because I think it's important for us to recognize, one, we have to put everything on the table, as you mentioned, Senator, and then how do we go about that so everyone can say, okay, that's realistic, that makes sense, that's practical, let's move that forward?
I think people don't understand, and I certainly didn't understand before I got into government, that every year there's a big battle over how much we're going to spend, how much the budget's going to be. But what I didn't realize was that's only 30% of federal spending. 70% of federal spending is automatic. There's no vote on it at all. It's those programs, we call them mandatory programs or entitlement programs, and that spending goes on without a vote. So the advantage of having a commission is that we're finally able to look at all federal spending, all sources of revenue, and on that basis finally get to a point where we can hopefully balance the budget.
Yeah, and as you look at that, is part of the commission, will it also be looking at almost like the way they did the BRAC in terms of the military spending and kind of looking at it base by base? And will it be an opportunity to look at all of those federal programs and say, okay, is there waste, fraud, or abuse, and is it actually delivering results? Is that going to be a component to all of this conversation?
I certainly hope so. I think you're going to find that there are a number of things we could do to economize how the federal government works. There are places we spend money we really shouldn't be spending money. These grand bargains that go on politically to try and get votes sometimes mean we waste a lot of money on things we shouldn't be spending on. The advantage of putting a commission like this together is that there are no, if you will, rules. There are no boundaries saying, oh, you can't look at this. You're not allowed to touch that. This is sacrosanct. Everything has to be looked at, recognizing that the objective of this group is to stabilize debt as a percentage of the economy. And if it comes up with a plan that does that, then it has a privileged way to get a floor vote. But if it can't come up with that conclusion, why then there's no vote. So it's a requirement that they've got to finally reach stability, so that frankly we don't hand the country off to our kids in a period of a catastrophic collapse.
Yeah, no question. And I think that approach is the right approach. I think that makes sense to a lot of Americans that do that around their kitchen tables every night, trying to make sure things actually add up and the dollars and cents make sense. I want to shift gears. I know you've got a hard stop coming up here, Senator. You visited Israel in mid-November with a bipartisan delegation of senators, including Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, whose speech today I thought was brilliant on the floor of the Senate on anti-Semitism and some of the things we need to be aware of and cautious of historically there. Give us some sense of how you see things playing out in Israel and the Middle East.
Well, I think Israel will continue to root out Hamas. I met today with two Israeli military leaders. They pointed out, number one, Israel has not bombed any hospitals at all. That has not happened. Number two, Israel takes every action they possibly can to reduce or eliminate any civilian casualties, including letting people know when they're coming into an area, when it's going to get bombs that are dropped on it, how to get out. They're making every effort to do that. They don't know how many casualties there have been of civilians. Hamas is not exactly a reliable reporter, but certainly there have been casualties and more than Israel would like to see. But I'm convinced Israel will be successful in rooting out Hamas. They've decided that's the only option they have. You can't have a neighbor that's trying to extinguish your life on a regular basis. You have to recognize you're at war, and Israel's at war with Hamas, and ultimately, I believe, will be successful.
Yeah, and last minute, Senator, as you look at the Middle East and beyond, look at Ukraine, also looking to China and Taiwan, you have a unique perch looking into all of that. What do you see on the horizon? What should we be aware of? What should we be wary of moving forward?
Well, there's no question but the authoritarian regimes, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, are on the march, and they're looking for weakness, and we need to show that we have resolve. It doesn't mean that we're going to win everywhere. It certainly doesn't mean that we have to send our troops into harm's way, but they have to recognize that America will not just lay aside and let them take whatever they want around the world. We have friends and allies, and together, collaboratively, we will be successful and we will win.
All right. Utah Senator Mitt Romney on a very busy day. We appreciate you squeezing us in here on Inside Sources at KSL. Thanks so much for jumping on with us and for your perspective as always.
Thanks, Boyd. Good to be with you.
All right. Again, that's Senator Mitt Romney joining us from our nation's capital. And a little Olympic note there. He obviously has some history with what has taken place here in the state of Utah today with some of the announcements around the Olympic Games for 2034 and also the Olympic-sized debt and deficit spending that we have to get under control. He's leading a bipartisan, bicameral movement to make a difference and change the conversation when it comes to the economy and our debt. We'll be back with more Inside Sources coming up next.
It's beginning to feel a lot like winter.
For the Wasatch Front, cold and hazy.
And it may soon look like it, too.
A couple of inches of snow to the valleys and a foot to 2 feet of snow on the mountains.
Be prepared with traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the nights, mornings and afternoons. And happy holidays from KSL News Radio.
I know a lot of people get stressed rolling into the holidays, worried about picking up extra pounds and inches and just not feeling good and then feeling guilty about it. Get rid of all of that. Best way to go about it, SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss because it is state-of-the-art. I began my journey almost 2 years ago. I lost 37 pounds in just 90 days, and here I am 2 years down the road, and I'm at the exact same spot. Holidays, trips, vacations, and all, because you learn how to eat different. You learn how to get the right nutrients for your body. You've got your own coach and nutritionist helping you every single step of the way. You have a customized meal plan. You have all of the things that you need to be successful and to have confidence rolling into the holidays, rolling into a vacation, rolling into a better you and a better life. So as I always say, when it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, there's no time to lose. There's only time to win. So start winning with SOTA Weight Loss. Check them out at sotaweightloss.com, SOTA-weightloss.com.
Hey, Derek Overstreet here from the New Millennium Group, financial advisors in Utah. You know, I've been helping people retire in the state of Utah for the last 20 years. The way we do that is we actually find out what is important to you. We create a step-by-step plan that takes into consideration your income, your debt, whether you want money from real estate, stock market, annuities, life insurance, whatever. If you want to deal with professionals, people that are fiduciaries and have a legal responsibility and obligation to do what's in your best interest, give my team a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Or go to my website, utahsfinancialplanner.com. If you'd like to retire 3 to 5 years before you thought it was possible, give my team a call right now. 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370.
In 400 AD, a forgotten time in ancient America, warrior prophet Moroni must preserve the history of his fallen nation while being hunted by a ruthless tyrant.
Where is the brave general now?
From Freestyle Releasing and Great Scott Entertainment comes
In memory of my God,
The Oath.
my faith and my freedom, my wife and my son.
The Oath, coming to theaters on December 8th, rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. More information is available at oathmovie.com.
Get ready, Utah! It's Medicare annual enrollment period, so why not make enrolling easier with United Healthcare? Whether you choose our online tools or over-the-phone support, United Healthcare will help you compare options so you can choose a plan with confidence. This is Medicare made for Utah, trusted everywhere. Explore our wide range of plans by calling United Healthcare today at 1-855-MEET-UHC. That's 1-855-MEET-UHC. Annual enrollment begins October 15th and ends December 7th, so call today.
Mr. Max buy one get one sale. Buy one suit for $299. Get the second for $100. Any style, any occasion. Free alterations at 9 locations. Mr. Mac.
Hi, I'm Celeste Edmonds, Executive Director of the Christmas Box House. When I was a foster child, Christmas felt like something that was for everyone but me. Christmas should be for all children. The Christmas Box is working with the Utah community to provide Christmas for nearly 2,800 at-risk children. To learn how you can help today, please contact us at thechristmasbox.org or Google us. Thank you and happy holidays.
This is Richard Paul Evans. I'm excited to announce a new book I co-wrote with Celeste Edmonds, director of the Christmas Box International. It's called Garbage Bag Girl. Years ago, I wrote a best-selling book called Finding Noelle based on Celeste's life. I always wanted to write her full story. Now I have. Warning, there are graphic parts. Her life was difficult, but ultimately, this book is about hope. I love this book. You can buy Garbage Bag Girl on Amazon. Garbage Bag Girl, now on sale.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, Utah's Olympic athletes are cheering today's announcement that the Winter Games could be coming back to Salt Lake City. Second, Salt Lake City's International Airport winning praise as one of the most reliable airports in the country. Third, police in Newport Beach, California, investigating an anonymous accusation of sexual misconduct against an NBA player. And right now, 34 degrees, sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
A new Pew Research survey shows that public trust in a variety of professional groups has declined, including trust in religious leaders. Only 53% of American adults say that they had a great deal or a fair amount of trust in religious leaders. That's down about 10%. We see this lack of confidence, particularly among Americans under the age of 30. They often fall into that category of the nones, N-O-N-E-S. We want to dig into that a little bit as to why that's happening, what the impact is, and how faith groups can actually regain and rebuild that trust that's so important, not just for faith communities, but for all of our communities. Really pleased to have joining us on the program Ryan Burge, a political scientist at Eastern Illinois University, research director at Faith Counts, a pastor, and the author of The Nones, Where They Come From, Where They Are, and Where They're Going. And Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So give us a little bit from your book in terms of the nones, these younger folks who just aren't really affiliating or identifying with any particular groups. Where are they and where are they going?
Yeah, they're all over at this point. In 1972, 5% of American adults were non-religious. In 1991, it was 7%. Today, it's 30% of American adults are non-religious. Amongst Generation Z, which are people born 1996 or later, it's above 40% who are non-religious. And it's touching every single demographic group in American society. So, young and old, male and female, white, non-white, Democrats and Republicans. They're just, you can't get to 30% of the population without touching every single aspect of American society.
And what seems, from your perspective, what are the core drivers of that? There's obviously some things in terms of advancement of society. There's some of the mistakes within churches and religious organizations. What are the real drivers underneath the surface?
Yeah, so one is called secularization theory, which is this old theory in sociology, religion. Just as you get more education, you become less religious. And if you look at Western Europe, that's sort of the model for what secularization theory looks like. And in the post-World War II period, they threw off religion rapidly, and many parts of Europe are less than 5% weekly attenders now. So it was going to happen in America. It just took a long time. So that's a possible explanation. We can't discount the role of politics. Amongst liberals, almost half of them are nones today. Amongst conservatives, it's closer to 10% are nones. So the growing God gap, 45% of all Joe Biden voters in 2020 were atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular when it comes to their religion. And there's a good chance whoever runs for president in 2028, the majority of their votes are going to become from non-religious Americans. And then, institutional trust is a big part of it too. Americans don't trust anything anymore. And religion has just gotten caught up in that larger wave.
Yeah, and I want to unpack that a little bit in terms of the trust factor, because I think it's such a core thing. I often say that we've stress tested this nation in world wars, pandemic, economic collapse. We've never had a real stress test in the absence of trust. And as you said, there are very few things that the American people have high levels of trust in. When it comes to the faith community, what needs to happen there, or how do you change the dynamic in terms of the direction of trust?
Yeah, so I hate casting aspersions upon the media, but the media does not report on the planes that land on time. It's always the people who mess up that get all the headlines. And the reality is there's over 100,000 houses of worship across America. There's probably over 200,000 people in full-time ministry in this country, at least, if not more. And 99.99% of them do their job well. They don't cheat on their spouse. They don't take money from the church. They just do what they're supposed to do. And every once in a while, you get someone who's a buffoon and does something stupid, and they make all the headlines. And so then people go, well, look at all these pastors. All they do is, sexually abuse children or steal money from the church, when reality is that the vast majority of pastors don't do that. So I think there's a PR campaign that needs to be waged a little bit amongst religion, which is look at all the stuff that religion does in Americans. I call it the invisible social safety net.
Yeah.
Think about the food pantries and the clothes closets and the after-school tutoring programs by the thousands. They're going on across America. They're helping our communities out. And they don't make the nightly news because that's just what churches do, is do the good work. And so I think churches need to be more mindful about how to, publicize all the good work they do and show that sometimes religion can be a force for good in the world. You just don't see it oftentimes.
Yeah, and we often don't see it until it's gone. It's that so many faith-based organizations, they love to be in the fingerprint business. They don't want to be on the nightly news. They're just out there doing good, making a difference, and really building that connective tissue, that social capital that is so vital for upward mobility, for people to really thrive and succeed. And so as you look at having that kind of conversation with the country, I think sometimes it's the absence of something that makes you do the double take. And if those food pantries did shut down, if, so many of the things that happen, education programs, self-reliance programs, all of those kinds of things that happen all across the country every single day without a lot of fanfare, far away from microphones and big, bright spotlights. That's the real hard work and heavy lifting that is community.
Yeah, so my kids I take a class at school called SEL. I had no idea what that was. And they go, Dad, it's social emotional learning. And I'm like, what in the world is social emotional learning? And I go, can I see the textbook you guys are using, the material? So they gave it to me. I start looking through it. And I start thinking to myself, where have I seen this material before? Oh, yeah, I read it in Sunday school class coming up in church. And now that church doesn't exist for a lot of these kids and Sunday school doesn't exist, the schools are now having to take on more responsibility, teaching kids about forgiveness and reconciliation and intentionality and all these things that I learned growing up in a religious household. Without religion, something has to step in and fill that void. And Americans, by and large, are not wanting a bigger government, a more socialistic style of government. So if churches can't do it and the government's not going to do it, there's a lot of people that are going to fall through the cracks. The social safety net is going to get wider and more ragged every year. And these people are going to fall further and further behind. The people who are addicted, the people who are depressed, the people who are lonely, people who need a job. How are they going to find those resources with the decline of religion? I don't think we have a good answer to that. And like you said, Boyd, but by the time we realize how much trouble we're in, it's going to be too late. And those organizations can't be rebuilt once they're gone.
Yeah, the rebuilding of that social muscle, that connective tissue, I think is way harder than most people realize. What it takes to actually keep that going and keep it from atrophying. And again, as we move more and more secular, it seems like we're drifting further and further afield from that. And so, as you look at this from your perspective, what's the therefore what? Where do we go from here, and how do we get to a space where we can ensure that invisible social safety net is there and that we are providing space? I love that you brought out just simple things like forgiveness and grace and understanding. We talk about the divisiveness in the country. Those are solutions, and if they're not getting those in a religious setting and they're not getting them at school, then we got all kinds of problems going on.
Yeah, I think so I'm a social scientist first and a pastor second. And so for me, a lot of problems can be solved horizontally. Think about the social aspect of religion. It's people gathering together on a regular basis and they're worshiping, but they're also hanging out 10 or 15 minutes before the church starts and 10 or 15 minutes after it starts or after it's over. That's where the social connections are built. That's where you set up, times to meet later in the week or trips or get-togethers or play dates with your kids. Like that is where a lot of the work of religion happens. And I think people think I have to go to church so I can believe in God. And it's all about, horizontal things, theological things. But think about the social aspect of religion and what you miss when that's not part of your life. I think a lot of people would benefit from just going for the horizontal reasons, and maybe the vertical comes later on. That's irrelevant to this conversation. You need to be around people. That's how we're designed as human beings. We need to find more space and opportunity to socialize. And there's churches in every corner of America that would love for you to come and just hang out and build community with them.
Yeah, gathering matters. Being a community matters. That connective tissue matters. Ryan Burge, thank you so much for joining us today. Fantastic perspective. Ryan is a political scientist at Eastern Illinois University. He's a research director at Faith Counts. He's a pastor. He's also the author of The Nuns, Where They Come From, Where They Are, and Where They Are Going. And Ryan, fantastic perspective. We look forward to having you back to continue this part of a very crucial conversation.
Thanks so much, Boyd. Really appreciate it.
All right, that's Ryan Burge joining us from Eastern Illinois University, and that is a crucial conversation. We have to keep that connective tissue rolling. That builds trust all the way across the board. We'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Salt Lake City is all but a lock on hosting the 2034 Winter Olympics after today's announcement from the International Olympic Committee. Governor Spencer Cox was ecstatic to hear the announcement that Utah was going to be considered as a host for the 2034 Games. He said this is exactly what we need to bring the state and the country together.
Our world is in chaos right now. We see that. The Olympics is that breath of fresh air, that light that is so needed. And Utah is the place. We know how to do this. We know how to welcome people who are different than us, people who speak different languages, people who will come and see the very best, not just of the United States, but the very best of the world. That's what we have to offer the games. That's what we have to offer humanity. And I can't think of a better place to do it than right here.
The governor added this couldn't happen without the hard work that went into the 2002 Winter Olympics. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A vote to expel Congressman George Santos from the House of Representatives has been put off until Friday. Santos is accused of telling dozens of lies during his campaign and breaking ethics rules by using campaign funds for personal expenses. House Speaker Mike Johnson, though, says he has reservations about the process. It would take a 2/3 vote to kick Santos out. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing the trading day up just 13 points. The NASDAQ was down 23, the S&P 500 down 4. And our KSL weather, that stubborn inversion's going to hang around a while longer. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
You can't expect a policeman to unclog your drain. You shouldn't ask a teacher to change your oil. And you wouldn't want a fireman to clean your teeth. So why would we let politicians take over our internet service? That's just not what they do. Experience proves government-run networks mean waste, corruption, and failure. One example, called Utopia, promised to provide internet service in 16 cities within a few years. But over 20 years and hundreds of millions of dollars later, a better name would be dystopia. They say it's almost complete. We say stop wasting our money. Go to nogovinternet.com and tell lawmakers enough is enough. Local tax dollars are precious, and public employees have plenty to do already. Don't let politicians mess with our internet. Paid for by nogovinternet.com, a project of Domestic Policy Caucus.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you ever feel like getting your supplies for your CPAP is just a huge headache? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We'll say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a stress-free life with our CPAP resupply service. Signing up is a breeze. Just place a call, choose your products, and leave the insurance billing and shipping to us. Our discreet packaging prioritizes your privacy, and we always ensure an on-time delivery. No more trips to the store or worrying about running out of important supplies. We get how crucial your CPAP therapy is, so don't let the stress of keeping up with it affect your sleep and health. Join Alpine Resupply today and enjoy a tranquil night's sleep with all your CPAP essentials. Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Holiday Stories from Shane Company customers.
It's our first Christmas together, and I wanted to get her something special. That's why I went to Shane Company. They had so many great gifts to choose from. It was a toss-up between hoop earrings and an emerald bracelet. So I got both, one for under the tree and one for her stocking.
Shop holiday gifts in every price range. Fine jewelry crafted with care and made to last a lifetime. 'Tis the season to shine. Shane Company. Fine jewelry since 1929.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Ricky Meese.
A good drive on the Valley freeways and main secondaries. We do have a report of a fire by the roadside, 500 west at between 500 and 600 north. The perfect present doesn't always come wrapped under the tree. Treat your loved ones with an unforgettable afternoon or evening of music and laughter with Utah Symphony. Find your tickets at utahsymphony.org/holiday. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, the inversion sticks around today and tomorrow. Air quality getting worse. Highs will be around 40. A cold system then brings snow and cleaner air on Friday, and the chance of snow continues through Sunday. Right now, we're at 34 degrees with partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bonas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as was announced last week, Utah is scheduled to host one of the 2024 presidential debates next October up at the University of Utah. The question is, will it actually happen? Both the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee have refused thus far to commit to them for a wide range of reasons. But considering how the last cycle went with former President Trump and now President Joe Biden, not surprising there's some angst and some frustration on both sides of the political spectrum there. But it's crucial to have these kinds of conversations. Presidential debates are an important tradition in this country. It's an important coming together for the people of the country and make important decisions that affect the future of our country. And we're really pleased to have joining us on the program today Ben Voth, is a professor of rhetoric and director of debate and speech at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. Had a great piece in The Hill talking about presidential debates, why they might not happen. We'll get into that a little bit. But more important, how we can actually save and change the dynamic, and I would say not just of presidential debates, but of debates in general. I think we need to change the game, and Dr. Voth has some great perspective there. And Dr. Voth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm very happy to talk about this.
So let's start with kind of the practical, tactical. Both sides have been squealing and squawking a bit in terms of presidential debates, and just give us from your perspective in terms of why we are where we are. What are some of the main problems and drivers of the discontent and the threat of maybe not even having the debates in 2024?
Well, I mean, the ironic starting point is actually the popularity of the debates themselves. I mean, they actually draw audiences anywhere from 50 to 100 million people. The first one that was ever done in 1960 actually drew 100 million people, which is an amazing thing, given, United States population patterns. But there's so much value, even from just a purely commercial standpoint of reaching a television audience of that size, that it creates a pretty intense competition to host these things. Now, there's kind of a more recent history where this process was handed off in 1987 from the League of Women Voters, who kind of had run it through the 1970s and early 80s, to this new group, the Commission on Presidential Debates, that took over in 1987. I do think the Commission on Presidential Debates has struggled to create formats and to operationalize the debates in a way that is completely satisfactory to the DNC and the RNC, which are the major political parties that have to, bring their candidates into that forum that the CPD creates. And so the disagreements, and to be honest, the biggest disagreements right now are between the RNC and the CPD, but both, as you said in the intro, both of those groups are really not committed to this current CPD plan that's up for 2024.
Yeah, and a lot of that, and you pointed this out in your piece in The Hill, is that the moderator role has become a big deal. In fact, I love the fact you called out moderator Chris Wallace, who is known as a pretty even-handed moderator. He took up 25% of the speaking time in the last debate that he moderated. Give us just a real quick snapshot in terms of the moderator role in a debate and where we've gone astray there. And then I want to dig into some of the other components of how we fix this.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the moderator role has expanded dramatically. And I think partly because there really are no rules in the system for what the moderator is to do or what, if any, limits there would be. And in fact, there's sort of this implied idea that the moderator is the limiter, and so therefore that's the good. But we've gone pretty rapidly from about the 2000 debates to the 2020 debates to where, as I point out in the article, that Chris Wallace was occupying 25% of the 90-minute interval of speaking. That really is largely unnecessary, and it's setting up some very significant rhetorical and communication problems where, because he or any other moderator can talk as long as they want, and then they limit the candidate to like 90 seconds,
right?
Those answers are then understandably critiqued. It's like, well, you didn't really answer the question. It's like, yeah, because you kind of gave a big, long speech before you let me answer for a very limited amount of time that you're policing pretty intensely. And I sometimes make a joke in my class, with my college students, like, imagine if somebody sort of dug all the dirt out of your high school record, they recited that to you without limit of time, and then said, now respond in 90 seconds. I mean, all of us would recognize that was a kind of a rhetorical trap. So we've got to unravel that conundrum in order for the whole forum to function correctly, both for the public and really honestly for the candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. And because a lot of the criticism is, well, these are all just canned things. They're 30-second, 90-second sound bites. The thing I knew you were a kindred spirit reading your article when you referenced 1960 Nixon and Kennedy and the fact that they each got 8-minute opening remarks, which everybody should go watch today, by the way, because it's brilliant and so important. So give us some other ideas in terms of how we could change the dynamic and actually make these an important forum again.
Yeah, and I agree with that point that you're just talking about. I think giving the candidates more time, including opening statements, and even if it were only 6 minutes, I think people would be surprised at the depth of analysis that could be achieved in 6-minute statements from candidates to open the debate, for example. I think the other sort of strange thing, and I think for a lot of people it seems counterintuitive, but I said this in the editorial, that instead of giving a long speech by the journalist or whoever's doing the moderating, if they just said immigration, one word, go, all that time that went into setting up the question, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, could be given to the candidates so that they could give like a 3-minute answer to the question of immigration instead of trying to set up, and we all recognize it, kind of these gotcha games, like, well, on this date you said this, and on that date you said that, and why did these things contradict each other? And I mean, that is interesting, but letting the public is watching because they want to compare the positions of the candidates as they are in that time, in that context. So it'd be better to shorten the moderator prompt or question and let that time to give them to the candidates.
Yeah.
The other big thing that I would sort of push is just that the candidates be allowed to question each other. And I think that's also something where people are scared to do that. But that's, to me, the better fact-checking than, again, this very vague notion that Candy Crowley kind of acted upon in 2012, like, well, I think you're not telling the truth. And while I understand that motive, and I do think that outside of the debates, that's okay, during the debates, that's actually counterproductive to what those of us who teach debate and do debate, that's not really what you want.
Yeah, and I love that idea of just giving a topic, immigration, healthcare, border security, whatever it is, and letting them run, because I think that actually gives you, as you were alluding to, Professor, that it actually forces them to go deeper. And you can actually see, does this candidate really know anything beyond a 30 or 60-second response to this question that they've already memorized? Because if you have 4 minutes, you got to say something. And if not, that's going to be pretty obvious.
Yeah, and we actually have tested some of these ideas here on my campus. We did like a 2018 gubernatorial race, and we just gave that extra time to the candidates, and that's what we saw. We saw them go in greater depth about things like immigration or abortion, or just, and the fun thing that we were able to do is just actually ask the campaigns, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And really, I think everybody's afraid, and they're not really going to do, they're trying to say like, well, I want to talk about my favorite ice cream flavor. Like, no, they're not. They're going to say, issues that they think matter. And when the two candidates agree that they want to talk about the same issue, well, then you know that you need to drop that word in front of them and let them kind of go at it a little bit. And that's going to be so much better both for them and for the public.
I love that. This is great insight, great perspective. Dr. Ben Voth, Professor of Rhetoric and Director of Debate and Speech at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And, Professor, we hope to have you back on because I think you're on to something that we need to think again about how we approach these debates. And we look forward to having you back to see how we can get to that part of the conversation. Thanks so much for making time for us today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
All right. Great perspective there. We got to think again about all debates, not just presidential debates, all debates. I love this idea. Just give a word. Abortion, immigration, healthcare. Give them 4 minutes. Make them really come up with an in-depth answer and demonstrate what they actually know, not just a soundbite. That's a better debate. That's a better conversation. We'll stay with it. We'll be right back.
This holiday season, visit Boot Barn for top quality gifts that pay tribute to the lasting heritage of the West. From handcrafted cowboy boots and American-made felt hats to hand-stitched leather jackets, our in-store experts will help guide you as you shop, assisting with boot fitting and providing complimentary hat shaping. This holiday, share a piece of the American spirit. Boot Barn. Unwrap the West.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Because we have had the Connecticut soft water system in our home for years and years, as a matter of fact, 2 different homes, I can tell you that it really is so much better than other water softeners, hands down. I love it because it makes a bag of salt last 3 times longer than the systems of competitors. It gives you wonderful, luxurious soft water you can count on 24/7. And when you're dealing with these folks, you're going to love. You'll find out that there are no nonsense, no loopholes, 10-year warranty. You feel like you've really found friends, and you find yourself really in soft water heaven. Connecticut of Utah. If your system doesn't sound like the one I just described, I want you to call Monty. I want you to call Steve. The great people, all of them there at Connecticut, will take care of you. 801-576-8600, or go online at softwaterutah.com.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors to tell you about our 10-year everything guarantee. Most contractors spout off having great warranties that last forever. But those warranties are always, and I do mean always, riddled with loopholes, exception, fine print, and nonsense. At RGS Exteriors, we cover everything. Parts, labor, material, everything and anything for 10 full years. There's no cost to you whatsoever. No hoops to jump through, no exceptions. Yes, the products we sell, like James Hardy Siding, our windows, gutter covers, come with a 25 to 50-year manufacturer's warranty, just like everybody else. But the truth is, the products almost never fail. It's always the labor and material which is never covered, so you're stuck paying for service calls. For peace of mind, call RGS Exteriors. You'll sleep easy for 10 full years. 801-280-3110, or visit us at rgsutah.com. That's 801-280-3110, or online rgsutah.com. Gutters, siding, windows, and all exteriors with the 10-year everything guarantee.
As I look at my path to the NFL, I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. Having a supporting cast for me made all the difference, both on and off the field. And the thing I realized this last year was having that supporting cast made my dreams and my goals a reality. I prepare as best as I can for every situation on the football field. You know, that same mindset applies to me as a husband, as a dad. And being a new father with an 8-month-old child, I've realized that, you know, I now have a responsibility to my son and to my wife, just like I do my teammates. I spend all my time being a quarterback, and I need to find people that I can trust and rely upon. Deseret First Credit Union, they are those people that are spending all that time to help me manage and take care of my family. My name is Taysom Hill, and my why is faith, family, and football.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Utah's governor is ecstatic over today's announcement that sets up Salt Lake City to host the 2034 Winter Olympics. Second, commercial air service is coming back to Ogden. Breeze Airlines will start up flights there early next year. Third, Congressman George Santos is safe for at least one more day. A A vote to expel him from the House has been delayed. Right now, 34 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. Earlier in the show today, we focused on a speech that was delivered today by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was powerful. Yes, that Chuck Schumer, Democratic leader in the Senate, who I happen to disagree with on a lot of political pieces, and someone I respect immensely, someone I have seen deliver powerful messages at crucial moments. And I think he did that today, and that's worth everybody across every spectrum stopping and listening and understanding just a little bit better. So the speech that he delivered on the floor of the Senate today, we talked about it earlier in the show. It was a warning on the rising tide of anti-Semitism that we're seeing in this country and elsewhere around the world. Throughout Senator Schumer's speech, he invoked lessons that have been learned throughout world history. And it's something I really appreciate about Senator Schumer is his grasp and his understanding of the power of history in giving us proper perspective for today and, more importantly, for the future. If you ever want to listen to a really great speech, go listen to Senator Schumer's address at President Obama's second inauguration. I think it was the best speech of the day. So for today, we'll continue his focus from what he delivered on the floor of the Senate this morning. And I want to go into some of those historic lessons that the senator shared and why it should inform some of the Jewish concerns today. Senator Schumer spoke about the secure condition of the Jewish people in Germany during the early years of the 20th century and how very quickly that condition worsened as Nazism infected Germany and led to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Holocaust.
Growing up, I remember my grandfather telling me that he rooted for Germany over Russia in World War I because Germans treated the Jewish people so much better than Russia did. In the early 1900s, German Jews were one of the most secure and prosperous ethnic communities in Europe. But in the span of a decade, all of that changed. When the Nazis first marched in the streets and held rallies decrying the so-called international financiers, war profiteers, communists, many Germans of goodwill either stayed silent or marched alongside of them, not necessarily realizing what they were aiding and abetting. But when Adolf Hitler took the podium just a few years later at the Reichstag, it was clear by then that the terms international financiers, war profiteers, communists represented the Jewish people, who Hitler called parasites, feeding on the body and productive work of other nations. By bits and pieces, the Nazis softened the ground rhetorically for what Hitler eventually stated was his true goal. Quote, the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe.
Very important words from Senator Schumer as he condemns anti-Semitism, and he warned the left and he warned the right against abetting that kind of anti-Semitism here in the United States. He went on to give a warning about the vulnerabilities of Jewish people all over the world and right here in the United States.
Because some Jewish people have done well in America, because Israel has increased its power and territory, there are people who feel that Jewish Americans are not vulnerable, that we have the strength and security to overcome prejudice and bigotry, that we have, to quote the language of some, become the, quote, oppressors. In fact, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories throughout the generations often weaponize this very dynamic by pitting what successes the Jewish people have achieved against them and against their fellow countrymen. That's been throughout history. It's happening now.
Powerful perspective from Senator Schumer. He also spoke about the historical context of the creation of the State of Israel in 1948 and how both Palestinian and Jewish populations were displaced in large numbers in the Middle East.
Many of those protesting Israeli policy note that at least 700,000 Palestinians displaced or forced from their homes in 1948, but they never mention the 600,000 Mizrahi Jews across the Arab world who were also displaced, whose property was confiscated, whose lives were threatened. The hope at the time was that there would be two states, a Jewish state and a Palestinian state, living side by side. In fact, Israel did absorb the displaced Jewish people of Arab lands. But the Arab nations sanctioned the United Nations to set up refugee camps for the Palestinians, refusing to accept the possibility that any of them would ever be relocated.
And finally, Senator Chuck Schumer ended his powerful speech today, and I encourage you to go back and listen to the speech in its entirety. It is a masterclass in delivering principle based on history that leads to good policy and better outcomes for our community and for society. Senator Schumer concluded his speech and this message with resilience and with hope, how Jewish people have prospered alongside everyone else in America, and how we all must fight to preserve our American tradition of freedom, of prosperity, and pluralism.
The roots of pluralistic, multi-ethnic democracy are deep in America. This is a place where Jewish people have been able to flourish alongside so many other immigrant groups. We must never lose sight of just how special that is, nor must we ever stop fighting for it. All Americans share a responsibility and an obligation to fight back whenever we see the rise of prejudice of any type in our midst, to preserve this nation as a promised land of refuge, as a land that honors the dignity of every individual, as the land of opportunity for all.
It is a land of opportunity for all, and we need to keep it that way. And that's up to all of us. We all have to call out hate and bigotry, anti-Semitism of every kind in every place, particularly when we see it amongst our own friends or our own community. It's one thing to call out the other side of an issue or an argument. It's quite another to turn around to your friends and say you're getting it wrong, or you've crossed the line, or you've gone from a disagreement on policy, and now you're making that other side not just wrong, but wrong and evil. And that's where contempt begins. We've said it many times on this program, and I think Senator Schumer did it extraordinarily well today, to say that the real problem that we face in the country is not just the political polarization. The problem is contempt. It's that feeling that those that are not with you are against you, and they're against you, and they're wrong, and they're against you, and they're evil. And that's how that kind of prejudice, that's how that kind of anti-Semitism, that's how hate and violence of all kinds gets root. And it gets root not from the top, it gets root from the bottom, which means it happens in our homes. It happens in our social media feeds. It happens in our communities. And so we have to be the ones willing to stand up and say, nope, not on my social media feed, not in my conversation, not in my political conversation. I'm going to reject all of that. Bigotry, hate, fear-mongering. It's time to set those things aside. And I thought Senator Schumer did a brilliant job today of reminding us of the lessons of history, specifically as it relates to anti-Semitism. But we have to remember that when we abet, when we stand by, when we silently watch or don't stand up and speak out, as Senator Schumer described it, we're laying the seedbed for that kind of hate to flourish. And when that happens, then everything changes. And if we can target one group of individuals, all groups can be targeted at some point, depending on who's in power. And when we play the idea of power game,